welcome back to another, I guess, turn 1, turn 0, turn 0, turn 1, however we want to do that, strategy guide for, this time, Guardians of the Galaxy on Cosmic Portals. I had recently shared with some folks that Cosmic Portals had made its way into my choice of a third secure, and I dropped Intrusions for this. Naturally, I was kind of met with a lot of questions like, why would you drop Intrusions? That's a really great crisis for Guardians, and I think it's a very good crisis for Guardians. I don't think it's as good as two of my other favorites, and I might have mentioned in the past that I felt Intrusions was, if I could replace it, I might. It's been in my list now for like 2 years. I'm really familiar with it. The things that I didn't like about it was that it just caused a lot of bunching of teams, and I've always been kind of against Gamma and some other things because of essentially kind of what it creates as far as not being able to kind of leverage some of the things that I think Guardians do really well, which is having a good mix of ranged attacks, movement, and just attack dice. It's not a very good defensive team. We have very limited defensive tech, and when we're going up against like a brawling squad that can now just teleport around between these things, boy, it kind of really limits some of our kind of built-in advantages, in my opinion. We do have some fairly tough characters, but they're not really all that tough when you can compare it to something like a Luke Cage being able to bodyguard things and spread damage around between maybe him and somebody like a Lizard or a Kingpin or who knows, any number of these other teams, or even like a Crimson Dynamo and what he can do from a defensive standpoint for a squad, and the fact that he's bringing in a beam, right? So, big reason why I've kind of swapped that out and why we swapped in here. Now, the most recent video that I did was actually a video on Cosmic Ghost Rider turn 0 and turn 1 strategies, and really it's the absolute strength of his kit and just an absolutely huge part of what he does and what's made him kind of the really controversial model that he is already. And if you haven't seen that, take a look at it, and some of the things that I'll be going over really briefly in here comparatively will be a lot more apparent if you take a look at that. And hopefully, if you have taken a look at that video and you see this, you'll really understand why I'm now including this in my competitive Guardians list as my number 3 crisis over Intrusions. Quick summary of that. The number 1 first and most important reason is that I fundamentally believe that Cosmic Ghost Rider is utterly dominant on D-shapes. He is just fantastic. His speed gets him around the board anywhere he wants. He's faster than any model in the game. He's got fantastic range, which is great on this, and the ability to pull people off of points if they're trying to leave like 1 or 2 models behind to maybe hold on to their back point or like a flank on the side. Typically, opposing teams will try to leave models like a Wong or a Bullseye or all these kind of weaker models behind, and he just absolutely destroys them, typically in like one shot, right? So it's a real great way to disrupt your opponent's scoring on here and allow you to focus on one side of the board, which if you've watched any of the other videos that I've put on here and talking about Guardians, that's really what we're trying to accomplish. I think D-shapes have a really great way of separating teams and kind of getting them to split up. I used to absolutely hate them, right? Because there were just other lists that had models with movement, with great abilities to kind of just rotate around a board. Like, there are some very strong, like, Avengers teams that can rotate around a board, and just Web Warrior teams that can rotate around a board and score these things, right? And kind of dictate the pace. But when there's a Cosmic Ghost Rider that sits in the center of the board, that rotation just doesn't work as well, if at all. And that's really the key of what sets this apart, maybe more than others. So, moving into it, we're going to get into here. I'm going to go over basically 2 lists that I would prefer to be running on this 16, which is going to be assuming that we're playing at 16, and that I've kind of won priority on this. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that, and I'm going to show you the real strength of this. We've just opted to put a C shape out there with a fairly common one. we'll talk about like another common secure shape being the D shape as well. And I might even display that as far as how that works on this. But also, another reason that I'm really big on Cosmic Invasions is the threat level. It's at 16, right? Um, that is actually kind of a tougher uh, level for a Malekith Cabal team, which I think is probably the biggest silver bullet that Guardian still has. I think we're extremely strong in everything. I think that Malkabal list with either a Mystique or even a Lockjaw in combination with a Red Skull on 15 threat with those condensed crises and the sort of things that the Grunts can do on these 15 threat things is just pretty nasty. That 15 scales actually really well to 19, and the Red Skull Grunts are amazing on these intrusions because they can interact for free, and basically, you know, they can get to wherever they want on the table and get their team scoring points. And again, it scales really well up from the Poison Zone, which is going to be Malekith, Red Skull, and Mystique at 15, or Malekith, Red Skull, Lockjaw at 15. Then you just add a 4 threat, and for them, it's going to be like Bill, right? Who's just a load, as any Guardians player would know. For them to get to 16, it kind of really screws up their ability to do it, especially if they're running a Mystique involved team that's still running Deception. The goal, or at least in my opinion, if you're going to bring a restricted card attached to a model, you want to make sure that they're out on the board as much as possible. It's hard for them to do that at 16. What that list probably looks like at 16 is like a combination of, like, you know, a couple of 3 threats in addition to, or like maybe a 4 and a 2, like a Bill and a, you know, Bullseye to get to 16, or, you know, Malekith, a 6 threat, and that could be Cosmic or Hulk, and then Mystique. Well, if it's any of those other lists, right, on a D shape, I like our chances, okay? Obviously, Malekith and Cosmic and Mystique from an attrition standpoint is going to be a problem, but I think we can probably outscore them and maybe live long enough just by using our abilities to kind of get around. But I don't want to just focus completely on that matchup. I actually think that we're better than a lot of these other teams on this, but this really especially helps with that. And this, again, doesn't scale to 19, and it's, in my opinion, not a good crisis for them. This is a potentially very good crisis for X-Men and other folks, right? Because they defend well at range, but they also don't hit well at range, right? And I don't think, if I'm an X-Men player, I like my chances of dealing with Cosmic Ghost Rider in the center of the board, or having to even attack into him. Now, he's going to absolutely be able to tear into them whenever he wants, right? Just because of the movement ability. And we'll get to that here in a second. But this is really all about the D-shape and kind of leveraging his real toxic elements. So, with us having priority and there being a C shape out on the board. Now, if this is an F shape, the same concept applies, okay? And what I'm going to show you and kind of talk about on that first and foremost is we're going to use Eyes on the Prize to get this, okay? That's really the big goal. So when we're dealing with like a C shape or an F shape or an E like Montesi, we want to make sure that we're going to give ourselves a really, really, really good chance at stealing that extract parity, because that's going to set up everything that we're going to be wanting to do with this crisis from here on out. So I've already got the crisis cards selected. We'll kind of go over and discussing these really briefly. Brace for Impact. If you heard me say it before, I will say it again. Should be in every list all the time. Sacrifice, right? In this particular situation, I'm not super hot on because we are going to be a little bit spread out. You could make an argument here for lovable misfits, especially because I'm bringing Crew of the Milano, right? None of these other cards really work all that well with the other characters we've got, except for maybe Marked for Death. We're not bringing a terrible amount of ranged attacks. Again, Cosmic Ghost Rider doesn't really care about range. He's just going to move in. This might really, under these circumstances, with the squad that we've selected, only be useful for Star-Lord. So I think if you're comfortable not bringing Sacrifice, and it's a fantastic card, just maybe not under this crisis, you can really get this wonderful combination of lovable Misfits and Crew of the Milano, right? If you can pop those off on the same turn, you know, you can kind of you immunize yourself to the stun and potentially get yourself a chance at an extra attack or just doing a little bit of extra damage. And even the movement sometimes could be extremely helpful, right? But for my case, I think I'm going to prefer Sacrifice here, but it all depends on what you're going up against as far as a team. So we'll get this auto-activated. Now, I do have an opponent team pulled up across there, but this is really only going to be to demonstrate some of the different things from a range. I'm not going to be discussing their models too much. We're just going to be moving them around really quickly. All right, so I've already got deployment lines on and set up, okay? First thing I want to do is put Cosmic Ghost Rider right dead center in the board, okay? The reason for that is because from this center position, and this is really the value of him on a D shape, it really is, and this is the most disgusting and unfair thing about him. When you roll for your power, you have a 50% chance of having 4 or more power on turn 1, okay? I've went over this in extreme depth in his video, but it basically, on a D shape, it allows him to be able to move over here and double tap that, move over here and double tap that, no matter where they are, right? If he does it in an R4 place, and then he can double tap them, and then if they're still alive, and pull them off and incinerate them, okay? That moves in well within range 3 of both sides. On the back point, if they go to the front side of it, an R4 will allow a double tap in the same thing. The only way that they can really avoid getting double tapped is by being all the way back there. Now, he can still get there, and we'll kind of go over that stuff too as far as options on turn 1. But the real key on this D shape is getting him dead center in the board. Now, because I am also trying to do some other things, I might need to get him over a little bit more because we need to have room for Bill to come here. Most likely deployment that you'll see out of an opponent with a Criminal Syndicate team like this is you'll probably see a Bullseye there on the back line because it's typically where you like to have those models. Again, not safe when a Ghost Rider or Cosmic Ghost Rider's there. I gave my Bill a lot more space than he needed. I've kind of mentioned this in other videos, but you're not always going to see these size 1s kind of on your boards, especially if you're playing in person. So for all intents and purposes, we're just going to make sure this is a perfect alignment, which is what it is there. I could have measured that a little bit better, obviously. So your opponent now is going to have to choose basically a side. So the reason why we want to deploy here in the middle is because Cosmic Ghost Rider is an obvious middle placement on this D shape. Bill is an obvious middle placement because he's going to be taking eyes on that using priority. He's going to grab that extract. The opponent now has to kind of make a choice of where they're going to want to put their models, okay? Now, one thing that they can do here is they can take a model like Lizard and just try to really utilize his speed from the center of the board to see, you know, about getting to some of these other points. He's got Wall Crawler, he's got all that stuff. Or you could be seeing like a similar thing with like Rhino because he can tend to be pretty speedy himself. More than likely, Lizard. And he can't quite deploy there, so we'll probably see him off there. Alright. So we see that there's a Lizard. He's a little bit off center. That means that he's most likely to come over here. Now, what we can do is we just take a guy like Star-Lord, okay? And we just want to be able to potentially threaten that a little bit. But the real idea is that we can make it look like we're going to be considering an overload on this side, so that the opponent might be encouraged to deploy more over here. Now, seeing that, an opponent might think to themselves, okay, I need to put somebody over here with some decent energy defense on that flank because maybe they're going to overload that side. Maybe Rhino's not my guy. Maybe it's you know, Kingpin or Luke or something, right? Maybe they're saving Luke for the other side. So you could see a Kingpin situation here where he's just going to line straight up because he's just slow. You might have to just pick a side with him. For us in our last one, now that we see that they've chosen a side, we're just going to go ahead and say, you know what? I don't hate that side. And we got to look at like what they've got left. So they've got a Rhino and a Luke. What's the most likely thing to happen here is that you could end up in a situation we know we're getting this, okay? Which one they choose next, I don't know. But either way, if they take this one, they're going to get shot. Either by Star-Lord or Cosmic. He's going to get shot by Cosmic over here as well. You know, if we just go and line up Drax over here and just stick with the Overload, we're essentially forfeiting this. Okay? So I think what we try to do here is split the difference. And whichever of the two we're going to end up trying to rotate towards, we're going to try to get rotated over here by at least the beginning of turn 2. But ideally, what we'd want our opponent to do would be to counter by putting a Rhino maybe over here. And then maybe Luke here to try to keep their leader safe. Or kind of well protected, right? So that would be your deployment. Now, this is a really good kind of extract team that I've given for this Criminal Syndicate, guys. You're going to have Rhino there. He's going to come in with his tactics card. And so that's a really good deployment for them. And something that we need to be aware of with Drax, right? He can just spend 2 power and do, this is a robbery, chuck Drax off, and then take his extract if he does get one. So anyhow, we're going to get into turn 1 here. So first thing you do, you hit power, give yourself power for everybody. You roll with Cosmic Ghost Rider. 5 dice. Only got 2. Perfect, okay? I don't hate this because it can at least show us what we can do here. Now, as far as the math on Cosmic Ghost Rider's power amounts on, you know, turn 1 here or any rounds, right? You can run this over in a dice calculator if you want to over at Cerebro, which is the, you know, the list building site that I like, the dice calculator stuff, all that stuff, my resource site that I'm a big fan of. You know, what you do is you just run 5 dice. You just turn off the option to, you know, explode crits, and then you turn it down to 0 defense, and then you just check the damage plus, right? So you'll see that there's, you know, like a 90-something% chance to get 1 power, aka 1 damage. There's an 1 or 86, I can't remember, but it's like plus 80% to get 2. It's exactly 50-50 to get 3 or more, so that would put him on 4, right? It goes down to something like 20% for 4 power or more, and then something like maybe like 8-9% for 5 or more to put him up on 6, right? So obviously the most common ones that you're going to be landing on, in my opinion, are, you know, 2 and 3. Just so you kind of have to be able to plan around that. And I can tell you that as far as for planning purposes, it doesn't matter a ton. You're still going to get off an attack onto any of these points by doing this. And what I mean by any is here, here, and here. Okay? It's just kind of a matter about how you're going about doing it. But I'll show you for both. But for right now, we're going to start off and pretend that we've got 4, just for the disgustingness of it. So, first thing we do with Bill under these circumstances, we play eyes on the prize. So he spends power. We're going to pretend that I've done that. Even with an offset deployment like what I've done here, our friend Bill still makes this. You can see that, right? So Bill, oh, sorry, we get our winged it tokens. Bill won't need one because he's just running backwards, so we can just skip him, okay? And now we need to make like basically a really concerted decision about which side it is that we kind of want to pivot to. Now, I see that there's a Rhino over here, which means that he's probably going to get one of my extracts. If it's me, I'm probably going to want to pivot over this way. Okay, we're not in any sort of range or danger from any of this stuff. Bullseye, if he wants to come up here to the top part of this and, you know, take himself a shot, that's fine. Because that's going to leave him exposed to Cosmic Ghost Rider. The big guy that we got to be concerned about with ourselves is Rhino, okay? So, what we absolutely don't want is a situation where he can come up here, hit us, and then be able to place within one and get himself onto that point for free. So, we want to avoid that at all costs. We just make a guess at his size, right? And I'm going to kind of show you, like, a guess about what that looks like. So we'll even just do a place there. And it was pretty accurate when I had it before I moved it, right? So we need to be super careful with our build, like I was kind of showing you guys when I was initially just angling it. But that's really the only thing that we need to avoid, alright? Bullseye is whatever. He can get in that free damage. But we need to be avoiding this, so, you know, maybe this is okay. Does he fit on that? Now he does. Alright, so that works. Sorry for the goofy angle there. Now, if I'm the opponent, I don't know if I just want to come up and grab this with Rhino, right? Because that kind of takes away this is a robbery. Maybe the opponent sees that this is kind of wide open at this point. This is kind of what we wanted to give them by rotating Bill over there. So if I'm them, I probably just take a boy Kingpin, and we just come up here and make sure that we get our hands onto this thing. Alright, doesn't matter for them. Alright. So I think immediately for us, we just go over here. So this is creating what we want to create in this situation. When this shape really takes hold here in a minute, I'll be kind of showing you guys what it is that we're trying to accomplish with this. But if you've seen any of my other videos and you've seen some of the rotations that I like to make and some of this other stuff, let's just go ahead and make sure that we get ourselves covered. And good to go. And so right now, this is another one of the huge advantages of having something like eyes in your list, and really probably why Bill is everywhere in the game nowadays. The ability to just kind of steal this and force other teams to play into you is just massive, okay? So, you know, maybe Rhino comes over here. He breaks up that scoring parity. That's all well and good, okay? That's probably what you would see here. Maybe not immediately, but I think there's a good chance either way. He ends up maybe a bit like that. These big bases just have such amazing value for what they can provide. So our opponent has 3 activations left. I'm just going to opt to pass, most likely here. So again, you could see a situation where your opponent's going to kind of make some different decisions about how they want to go about doing this. You know, if I'm them, they should probably realize that my Star-Lord's going here, okay? There is literally 0 point for me to come over here and deal with this Kingpin right now, unless I was really trying to mess with him and then, you know, allow my Drax or somebody else to rotate over here and grab his extract. That is still actually an option, because again, if our Cosmic Ghost Rider rolls for 4 power, we come over here, we hit him twice, and then we pull him off at that point if he's still alive. At that point, Star-Lord moves forward. When he gets pulled off, right, if we pull him off in this direction, that's going to drop an R2 from roughly here to about here. Star-Lord will be able to move to right there, and it'll only take 1 shot to finish him off, and he'll be incinerated, so real good chance that he'd do it if it doesn't just outright kill him in the first place while he's standing up there while he already has cover. If he doesn't get killed by Ghost Rider, which I think he's got a good chance to survive it, I'm fairly confident Star-Lord will finish him off. So that is also another way to go about doing this, and a really great way to put a leader down real fast. So not exactly sure how they're going to go about kind of protecting this point. This is an option, albeit not a good one, because he's going to get pulled in here and not get cover. That's going to be more impactful later in the game. it'd be the same thing with this lizard over here, right? Uh, with his offset deployment, he can come over here and we can make sure that you have support on this, or you can try to get him in the center of the board. I'm telling you all this stuff right now. A lot of this doesn't really matter because we've got this extract parity already. We're going to be scoring 3 points. Our opponent's going to be scoring 4. This is very much close enough against a Kingpin team, especially with what we're about to be setting up and starting with Cosmic Ghost Rider. So I don't really know what they do. They could just do this because it is the safest play. That is most likely the option. So here's where we can make a decision with our Cosmic Ghost Rider, okay? We're going to have priority going into the next round. Unless they really want to get desperate and play all according to plan early. That could get them a Rhino activation, for example. Or it could get them a Kingpin activation, depending on which way we go. Either way, we've got options here. I think if it's me, what I want to do I think assuredly and most importantly, is I want to get this threat off the board, okay? Because he has the ability to steal extracts and just kind of generally mess with our plan. And if he starts running away across this board with that extract, it could be a bit of a burden for us to chase down. So I probably could have angled that a bit better. But as you can see, even with not being able to take a direct route because of that car, we're right there. So we go ahead and double tap into Rhino for his heinous 6 counting skulls. And I get 3 blocks to show you guys how OP it is. Do it again. And another massive whiff. Hilarious. But 2 skulls, so... Whole point is, that's still hitting for 4. I'm probably going to wing it off of this, because it's just probably going to be all damage at this point. And get 2 more blanks. Cool. Either way, it's not going to matter much. I don't think they're going to have access to all according to plan now, just because this probably didn't do a lot of damage to that poor Rhino. Now, the good thing about this is we're going to have priority. We can finish them off next round. And so now they're going to have to pivot their team over. So here's where your lizard's going to come in. And he's going to run over here to make sure that this point gets a chance to be won soon. Maybe he doesn't even come in all the way. Nope, doesn't make it because of the way I had to set him off. I think this is a fairly safe move for them now. Luke is probably going to want to get himself as forward as possible on this thing. Probably might even actually just start moving towards this back line and Star-Lord. Or just making sure that he's able to play it safe in the event that he can kind of start coming forward to start affecting the board if they can really feel like they can get away with this steal with Rhino. But what I want to be doing is just coming up here. We've already pulled in Rhino. And look at that. Now, I didn't have any of this stuff measured out in advance, but you can already start to see like some of the synergies that you're able to line up off of this D shape, right? So now we get that attack into Rhino. If we daze him, that does put all according to plan online for them most likely, because Rhino's going to have 10 power just by himself. And if that's something that they want to do where they can maybe attack Bill or Drax... steal their extract after he kind of does the place within 1 and then start running away. This guy's just going to chase him down. He's going to get that extract dropped. I think that we're going to be able to get it back. And he'll probably be KO'd by the end of the round anyhow. In which case, they're 4 threat down. They've got an extremely slow model here. This guy's going to be spending the entire game scared for his life. And so, how much are Luke and Lizard going to be able to kind of carry this thing going forward? Okay, so that would be your turn 1 here. So I think there's a possibility that we have a dazed Rhino on turn 1, even with some terrible attacks from Ghost Rider. And we've actually created for ourselves a, what do you call it? A 4 to 3 scoring lead against Criminal Syndicate Kingpin. This is not a pay to flip. This is something that they're supposed to be strong on, which you'd think would be, you know, on all these non-pay to flips and all that stuff, like it's great. But when you've got models like a Cosmic Ghost Rider that can just start indiscriminately pulling people off of stuff and killing people, once they start getting models that are injured, they don't start counting for anything really on, you know, their injured side. The leadership doesn't even apply to them anymore. Now, this is a fantastic crisis for the Kingpin leadership because of Legacy Virus, but yeah, so just again, you're just showing off the power there. Now, as far as this going into turn 2, right, it'd just be another power roll for Cosmic Ghost Rider. And then, so we started out this round with 0 power, so he'd be right there on 4. So he'd lose his Psychosis token. I don't actually hate that here, because in the event that, like, Rhino or somebody, you know, does go and try to run off, he's not going to get far. Cosmic, with this much power, is chasing everything down. He still hits hard enough, okay? We have a few things for ourselves here to kind of support him, but most importantly, one of the things that I've found, and as far as why we're actually bringing this card and supporting our big boy model, is that a lot of times in dealing with these 6 threat plus models, the best way to take them down is through status effects. When you have the ability to cancel out a status effect for an entire round to where they can't be applied and you just remove them, pretty big. So if, you know, Luke decides that he wants to try to get frisky and put everything he can into staggering the toxic Ghost Rider, we can just say, not happening. We're going to cancel that out. So I mentioned pulling up another popular extract shape on this and how that would have a different strategy. And what I want is Worthy. And where are they at? Fear Grips. Okay. This is actually a better or equally good setup for extracts. I'm going to get this turned on. Get everybody set back. You too, Star-Lord. Alright, so what I don't want here, though, is I actually don't want Bill on this particular one. Because the real advantage that he provides is kind of mitigated. Okay? And we obviously don't need eyes on the prize. And when I say it's mitigated, what I mean to say is that there's, on this crisis, with the shapes being what they are, we're going to have to basically pick a side. Okay? Assuming we've got priority, we can just basically pick that side and just go over there and dominate it. And that's what we've just got to do. We've got to focus on that. So, I'm going to get Bill deleted up on out of here. And our boy Agent Venom is going to take his place. And because we've dropped eyes out, we can now bring foreign assignment in. And there are some very cool ways to use foreign assignment on D-shapes. Which I, of course, will be showing you guys, because a lot of these tactics cards, especially foreign assignment, deadly duo, and other things, it's all about setup. That's really the big thing. If you can set things up in a way to where maybe your opponent doesn't exactly see something coming, or if they don't see something coming till it's too late, you're in the freaking winning business, okay? So now we want to clear out these, and we're going to be fast on this. Okay, so same thing as last time. On this D shape, we want Cosmic Ghost Rider in the middle. Again, the reason for this is because it allows us to get here, not there, well, obviously we can get there, but there, We have all of that covered with this guy. Okay? Opponent will likely do the same thing. Take their safe and obvious deployment for themselves. Get everybody kind of set up there on just in a bit of a general way. And I'll show you how we can counter up some of these things here. Okay? So what we want to be doing is, when we're looking at this and we're deciding on what we want to do with our matchups, what we're trying to create, again, is for our opponent to have to put a model on a side here and a side here. And the best way to do that with these small base medium movers, and when we have like a bit of a tanky model like Drax, who, by the way, Drax, like, his job is going to be to try to hold on to this secure against any team. He's going to have to hold on to that thing for dear life. That's basically his job. Under both of these D-shaped things, he's a pivotal piece. Like, he's tough as nails. He's a great duelist. So if we get a situation where he gets a one-on-one over there, I love it. But it's not really going to be a one-on-one, because he's going to have Cosmic to support him. He'll have Star-Lord to support him, and Agent Venom to support him, right? That's why I kind of like this particular list at 16 on this particular crisis. But the reason why I like it so much is because you can do two things, okay? If, for example, they've got a list, and like I said, we'll just pretend that these haven't been deployed yet. But it's probably going to be the same thing as last time if I'm then. But now we can take an Agent Venom, and we can take a look at the board and say to ourselves, well, if my opponent comes over here, they're going to have cover. So what does Agent Venom do? Takes away cover. That's right. So he's a perfect deployment over here. Opponent might, again, counter, seeing that we could be setting up for an overload there. You probably get your big meat mountain Kingpin, who's just going to be able to just tank everything up there and hold his own. Unfortunately, for some of these Kingpin teams with these slower models, right, they got to just pick a side and then just sit around. It can typically be a waste of a 4 threat. And we're going to do the same thing over here with Star-Lord, but, you know, the reason we're choosing this side to the left is because they're not likely going to get cover over here, and it's a little bit more wide open. And Star-Lord, a little bit more delicate, right? We're going to want him here. Okay, so depending on how the opponent counters, I could see a Lizard going over there, right? He'd be a pretty popular deployment choice. And he can kind of off-center it. And it's kind of at this point that we need to decide for ourselves how our where's Drax going, okay? I still like this over here. The problem is that because they've delayed their Rhino, he's going to be able to go over to whatever side we've got a hammer on and get after that. He's going to come over there and potentially just steal it from us, right? And so we need to be kind of dealing with him real quick, regardless of what size we're on. Now, another reason that I'm going to prefer this side over this side is that if we encourage a situation where Rhino comes over here, right? This Rhino, his damage output is going to be increased mightily because there's a size 4 terrain, and he is the only character on the board that can throw size 4 right now. And so I don't think I want to be messing with that. I'd rather meet him on this terrain over here. But I can be 100% certain that if this is a halfway competent Criminal Syndicate player, this is what we're looking at for a Rhino. Now, you might see a loot come over here as well. At this point, we can see that the overload's starting to connect. Or there's a chance that you could see an off-center deployment here so that they have some options, okay? Either way, for us, our tactics don't change a lot. The biggest thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we get our hands on this before our opponent, okay? We do have priority here. This is where we're going to be asking our guy Drax to carry some weight for us. That's going to be his job in this game. So he would come up. He has to get his hands on this, because if Lizard grabs that before us, it's going to be very hard for us to get it off, okay? You could, with Cosmic Ghost Rider, okay, bait Lizard up into this. You could bait a Rhino up there. But then you're running the risk of needing to absolutely daze them, and you're hoping that you get to this 4 power or 3 power threshold, but ideally 4, because that's what sets up the double taps, right? It's just requiring a lot of luck. Whereas if we just let Drax get his freaking hands onto it, you know, not only is he kind of our tough guy and duelist over here, but he's now going to be a lot better at defending himself with extra attack dice. So we can play him there. If I'm the opponent, you take the safe one back here. Bullseye grabs that. Okay. If I'm looking at this, for me, I'm wondering when I want to start passing. Okay. Obviously, you put that there. Here's the problem of having the winging it token on this. It kind of gives away a bit of your strategy. You're kind of already saying with Agent Venom that you don't intend to attack if you don't put a winging it token on him. But I think our buddy Drax, we need to make sure that nothing bad can happen to him. Because I think, which is probably what would be coming up right now, is you get a Rhino that's able to just move forward, and then I think he can attack our hero. So that's why we'd want that winging it token. That's going to put Rhino up on the point. Obviously, Drax would spend for this. And, you know, if he happens to do some damage here, and we don't have the ability to negate it, and then he just automatically does robbery, I guess that's fine. There's not much we can do about it. Something else to also consider on some of these deployments, and I forgot to mention this in the first game, but Cosmic Ghost Rider is actually going to have to roll for this because he is nope, never mind, it doesn't control it. That's right. Sorry, guys. This would have been last round if he's near him. We get it all mixed up in my head, but he's not controlling it, so it's not just with models that are near him. So don't let anybody tell you that you have to roll for that and have your Cosmic Ghost Rider get pushed around. Now, because he's got a Psychosis token, he can't control that. Sorry, brain fart. So he gets an attack off in there. He's going to need to generate, 1 damage. We need to try to prevent that. If it happens, oh well, okay? Here's what I was already trying to... If that happens, we just immediately need to start pouring everything we can into him. And that's why we hopefully get that 3 power or more into that roll. But let's say that he comes in here and he throws away Drax. Oh well. Okay, so Drax is out of the picture. They were going to win that secure anyhow because Kingpin reasons, okay? So he's put himself within 1. Now we just have to basically dive into this guy for everything that we've got. And typically, like I was saying, you're going to want to open up with this guy. Let's say we double tap him. Maybe we just actually daze him. At this point, you can try to drop it down here or going towards Star-Lord. I would just be worried about Lizard being able to come in and try to grab the thing. Because I believe he's going to actually be able to go from here to past where Rhino's at. So whatever it takes to get this as far away from possible from Lizard is ideally what we want to be looking at. For anybody wondering, I do think it is entirely possible that we can daze a Rhino with 2 shots from Cosmic, which is, again, still kind of disgusting. So, anyhow, let's say that we didn't get the 4 power to start and do that 3 power jump. Here's the other option. If you've watched the Cosmic Ghost Rider video, you've seen this. But this also works. You're only starting out with 3 power, right? So we do a medium move for 0 power. And then we can spend, in this case, I only need to get within 3 of them. because what we want to do is we want to pull him. For the sake of this video, I'm now just officially going to delete this car just because it's going to mess with that. So we're going to kind of cheat. Excuse me. Obviously, if there are things there, you're going to have to work around it, but we're going to try to show a little bit of ideal circumstances. Normally with this, you've got two options. You just take the medium move, or you could take a range 3 place and start double tapping. But I prefer, and a lot of times, to actually just make the medium move and then do a single attack action and then pull them off of the point. So that's also one way to deal with this. So I'll show you that one. It's all about just getting ourselves within range 3 and getting this model set up for an uncomfortable time. So we do end up slightly off there. Now, if they're all the way back, right, and he wasn't having a place within 1 of Drax, he was just trying to contest that, this is where you actually do need to have that 3 power, so that way you can just hop in using the 1 range. And now we've got this plenty covered, right? So we attack Rhino for the 1 attack, and then now we just pull him in. So more importantly, we are pulling him off the point, and we're keeping him over here around our team. If you do this right, you set up a double tap from Star-Lord into an incinerated Rhino. The first time you shoot him, you can just go ahead and blast him with a regular attack. You're probably going to generate a power, right? Second time, you just do a hit and run. And then if you actually end up finishing him off, which is possible because he's incinerated, he'll drop that token for you. You'll have your free movement. You can just run over and grab it, okay? And then you just finish off the round with Agent Venom coming over and grabbing himself a hammer. We want to get him lined up as close as possible to Rhino. Now, if your Star-Lord is like now up here, because this is what you might be trying to set up, let's say that he actually drops a hammer. Just give him Drax's. What we're trying to do here and there are a couple of ways that we can do it, but we can drop that there. So we'll start out this round. If Agent Venom doesn't get pushed away by this next turn, he has the ability to place himself. He can come over here for 2. Start shooting into Rhino. Ideally, we want to generate 5 power, okay? Because we want to do foreign assignment, and we want to be able to get 2 effects. So characters holding 1 or more Celestial Hammer must pay 1 power before playing a Team Tactics card, so that's why it costs 5. Is it possible for us to get 5 damage through on Rhino? In my opinion, on his flip side, I think there's a really good possibility. It's going to be a 6 on 3. If it doesn't happen, that's kind of fine, because, you know, we can still get our advance off of things. And we don't quite reach there, but you can kind of see where we're going with this. If you do get the 5 power, you get a free full auto attack. Rhino gets taken off the board potentially. You put yourself out here at max range 2. If Rhino's off the board, and then you just do yourself your Drax jump. See what I'm saying? So that would be pretty fun, eh? Obviously, if those 3 attacks, or that second, you know, Star-Lord attack, or that Star-Lord full auto that you would get into Rhino, if that doesn't work, you just take the throw off of Drax's ability to do that as well. Now, if you're in a situation where Drax doesn't get thrown off the point, and maybe there isn't like an ideal cover type thing there, when you come and bring him in, like you would in most situations if there isn't cover, you just want to be as far back as possible, okay? So we'll just kind of show some of this off from a little bit more of the deployment zone stuff as it is. And we'll pretend that it's not there. Rhino, getting very much to the end of this video. We rotate over. Star-Lord, just like on any sort of a B shape or what you've seen me do with him in things like demons, I like kind of having him float out in this kind of off-centered area, right? If you're playing on something that isn't hammers, obviously Agent Venom is going to have power back here. You can grab this with Star-Lord on turn 1, in which case that will give you the power you need for Agent Venom to do things on turn 2. But yeah, Agent Venom double moves here. Okay. Spends 2, hops up here. And you can already kind of see what's starting to happen. Is you do your 2 attacks. You're just trying to get up to 4 power. Very possible. Spend 2. So go off of Star-Lord with the full auto into whatever's here. And then move yourself onto the point. Like that. If there's a model on the opposing side, maybe 1 or 2, you just go ahead and take your Agent Venom from the Drax attack, throw them into there for 4 incoming damage, and then 1 damage into your Agent Venom. Either way, pretty cool synergy and stuff that you can kind of do there with your Agent Venom, like right off the rip. Doesn't work as well with hammers because you're only going to have the 1 power going into turn 2, so I kind of did misspeak there. Like I said, I don't really rehearse these too much, so I'll have to forgive the amateur hour over here, but hopefully some of this stuff is clarified why I believe that, you know, this is such a strong crisis, because we've now, you know, officially kind of separated a team, and I think this works really well into a lot of teams. I think this actually works really well into a Malekith Cabal. They could be running a Hulk. They could be running maybe another 6-threat. If they're running 2 threats, it's still only a 4-wide team, and they're going to have to try to keep some sort of scoring parity. If they split their team up like that, a lot of their models, as good as they are just not as equipped for it. If you give us the opportunity to take our whole team and just start blasting into a Malekith on his own, he will go down, and he will go down fast. Now that Cosmic or Toxic Ghost Rider is out, Malekith is no longer the most oppressive attrition or aggressive model in the game. You know, Toxic Ghost Rider is right up there pound for pound as far as effect on things from a dice standpoint. Malekith still hits harder, is still better defensively once you start bringing in Cloak of Shadows, but at the same time, we're talking about a 7 versus a 6 threat. And one thing that our measly 6 threat does compared to a 7 threat like that is the most disgusting facets of his game, to where, you know, we can just do stuff like this on a D shape. Let's say that this fight over here has gone well because of our foreign assignment turn, right? Maybe there is a daze model or 2. Well, if for some reason they decide to go ahead and daze Agent Venom, that's cool. We just play Got Your Back, and then we kill him, right? Then, you know, Drax is sitting here scoring his point. He picks up the extract, doing whatever. Well, now you just take your Cosmic Ghost Rider on turn 2. Maybe you can't make it all the way back there. Perfectly fine. It can be, you know, a 3, right? I realize that this truck, I think, is a size 3. It sure is. So we would still need to be able to establish ourselves, you know, line of sight. But under normal circumstances with some stuff like this, you'd be in a lot better shape. If you can get them out to around here in the center of the board, and you don't have, you know, terrain like this back there, you're good. Now, if terrain like that is there, well, what's to say that we have to go and just start blasting on Bullseye? Why don't we wait till the end of the round, you know, and maybe they've taken their Luke Cage and he's starting to rotate around, and they just got a Kingpin that just decided to pass and sit up here, right? Well, cool. We just do this. Drop ourselves in here. If Kingpin's literally just sitting up on the edge of that, or if he's moved himself down, pull him off. If Luke or somebody's tried to move here, pull them off. Probably kill one of them, right? If Luke starts trying to rotate around back to this point, you can still move up to here, right? You can start, and you can just shoot whichever ones you want. And there's not really much they can do in return. If they live, or if you just want to make sure that they're giving you the, you're having the optimum chance of just dazing them, just wait for them to activate, pull them off the point, and your Star-Lord or whoever it is later on in the round, turn 2, can just come back there. And all you've got to do is just keep this model up here in the center of the board, covering all of this, while the rest of your team is focused on winning that singular battle there with Drax and whomever. Star-Lord, whoever you've got back here on this back line, has the ability to assist in either, okay? If somebody decides they want to come in here and get close enough, if it looks like you can reasonably take them down, then by all means, just double attack into them, daze them. If not, if you don't feel like doing that, you have the option of just coming over here, hit and run, apply yourself some damage to whatever's there, come back. If you put yourself on the front of this point, okay, it's the same thing with old Star-Lord. He doesn't actually hate D-shapes, just pretty much everybody else that did, right? But that's just great. You hit and run, right back on the point. Right there onto the point. Same thing over here, right? So you just have all these options there with Star-Lord. Now, if for some reason it looks like Star-Lord's taking a big old beating, and if this battle is won, well, the beauty of this is you just rotate it forward. Drax starts working his way back here, just pressuring this. If he's really badly beat up, just leave him there. If Star-Lord's pretty badly beat up, then you can rotate Agent Venom back. And he gets, extremely similar action economy to Star-Lord because of his ability to place himself. And he can get right to where Star-Lord might want to be. And he's just doing the exact same things. Do a range 3 place, right, to about out here. Pop a shot, move back. All the while, if for some reason Cosmic's cleared this out and now your whole opponent team is sitting back there, that's fine. Go take yourself the full rotation, get the extract advantage, or the secure advantage. If we're holding on to 1 extract and we've got 3 secures, then we're in shape, right? From here, just start rotating the whole thing around. And then we can just pop in with an Agent Venom, pop in with the Star-Lord, while our valiant and beloved Drax, who likely took some hellacious beatings at the beginning of this game, can go into retirement back on the D point, right? So just all the options there. But the real key to what sets all this up is just this guy being able to hold this area down. He can prevent a lot of their team from doing the same sort of rotations that we can because he can cover all of this at will, right? It takes like a single placement from him to get around to all this. He can move around to any points that he wants and just start pulling people off of them. We can just automatically keep up on scoring. So for anybody that has watched any of the other Guardians videos, I haven't talked about using Cosmic Ghost Rider in them. I think he's fine on Demons, but I like that other setup a bit better. I think he's fine on Infinity. I kind of like that other setup a bit better. Intrusions, I don't think is his best situation because he can't go through the portals very often. And what makes him special is kind of negated because everybody can get around the board at that point. The Cosmic, back getter or got your back, right? It's fine on that, but I'd still prefer a beam, if that makes any sense, or I'd prefer the consistent damage, maybe something like even Wicked Judgment, right? So while he's fine there, it's not as good as what he is on a D shape or an F or even some of the other Bs. I don't think he cares for pay to flips a lot, but the rest of the team is certainly fine on them, and then the regular Ghost Rider is fine on them. If you're running Angela, she's pretty good on pay to flips herself, right? Just great defense. So, there's a lot of options with this, but my God, this guy, Cosmic Ghost Rider is just utterly dominant on D shapes. So hopefully this has really illustrated why this is so powerful. It's really good into the things that we're not really good into. It separates up some of those bigger, tougher teams that can hit really hard. And it allows us to use like our movement abilities and some of our built-in affiliated models and tactics in ways that forces the opponent to either play into us using the Bill Eyes play, or we can really utilize our movement abilities and like just superior tactics cards to allow us to kind of just pick on these people, to overload a singular side and then just slowly start collapsing the board, right? We can work this left lane like I've kind of been showing in the video, or we could choose to have worked the right. This particular deployment allows for all of that. If you have your Star-Lord or your Agent Venom off-center, depending on what you're looking at from a cover setup, the choice is yours. And then your last deployment spot is just going to be Drax, and that's just going to be the fighting side. So you just rotate the whole team over there and support it accordingly. And it's just a really, really good setup. If you can maintain like a close score on this, the attrition will 100% catch up to this other team. I don't know really too many opponents that are just going to completely give up a point. And if we can just go ahead and flat out kill that model and then start rotating around and killing things systematically, that's when Guardians is 100% at its best. And that's why Cosmic Portals has made its way into my secures. All right, as always, if anybody has any questions or if you have any feedback for me, feel free to hit me up, leave a message here. Or you can hit me up on Discord at the Barncat. Hopefully the audio was a little bit better this time. Hopefully you guys found this pretty helpful. But again, feel free to leave a comment, leave a message. Trying to help out people with some of this stuff and open up a few things. It's a really exciting time for Guardians as a whole. I think we're kind of in that S tier club. We've gone from maybe being B to A to B to A to now S and all this and kind of in between. It's always been really good since the December of 21 updates, but things have shaped up to this point to be probably the best version and best time to be a Guardians player in general. So I know there'll be a lot of people coming over into the affiliation that are new. We just had the Volume 3 get released, all that other stuff. Momentum's really on the side of this affiliation, so it's going to be looking like a pretty good fall for Guardians, at least until some things come out of the core box and there's some more releases to maybe shake the current meta in. But as of right now, there's probably two clear-cut meta kings and queens, whatever you want to term them as, but that'd be the Mal Cabal and then Guardians of the Galaxy here. So, again, hopefully you guys find this really interesting, but feel free to hit me up, the Barncat over on Discord, or leave a message here. All right, cheers. Thanks, y'all.